Namaste, everybody. Hello. Thank you all so much for coming, first of all. Oh, hi. My name is Ra Nature, and my life's work is to help people awaken to their highest potential, to their spiritual nature, to their awakening. And on my own path of awakening, I had lots of ups and downs, lots of difficulties. And one of the things that happened to me was this thing I called meditative eating. The subject that we're going to talk about today is eat your way to spiritual awakening. Does that intrigue anybody here?
Yeah.
What is your relationship with food? If you have any imbalance, let's say, in your relationship with food, can you raise your hand? Yeah. Our food is a microcosm of our life. Right? We have been eating most of our lives. We have grown this body out of the food that we have ingested. And every day we interact with food. And do we interact it in a balanced, in a beautiful, in a joyful way? Or do we run away from that experience in our mind and we are absent when we are eating? What is your experience with food? If you just remember how you normally eat, are you really there? Are you really present? What I see is that if you can approach food in the right way, it can transform your entire life. It can transform not just your relationship with food, but your relationship with others, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with different parts of your mind, with your anxiety, with your guilt, with your fears, with your desires, with everything. So let me give you a little bit of a background before I go into the details of how this works, which is something that I can teach you and that can really start making a difference from the first time you do it. But to tell you a little bit more, why I do this, how did it come about, what is the reason that I'm teaching this. After I had my spiritual awakening, people have it in various ways. For some people, it's like an epiphany. They read something, they're like, wow, my mind is blown. And then they start exploring life. For me, I went into a state of Satori or Samadhi, which means my mind completely stopped. And I was able to access my spirit very presently. And this happened at the feet of my teacher after I was looking for a long time for spiritual enlightenment, awakening. And finally, when I found that one person who could do that for me, it happened that for 3.5 hours, I was in a place where space and time didn't make sense. There was no me, there was no you, there was no world, there was absolutely nothing, only light. And after this glimpse of my own true nature, my life completely fell apart. I couldn't function anymore. I was an actor, I was a photographer, I did cinematography, I did so many things that I enjoyed. But after that awakening, life was so different, I couldn't relate to it in the same way anymore. Because I was different. Everything was same by itself. Nothing changed on the outside, but my way of relating to everything was completely shifted in that way. And has anybody experienced anything close to this? The experience may be different, right? But what happens in our life, that transformation where everything is turned upside down, that happens to a lot of people. And through those years of depression, through those years of hopelessness, through those years where I just found absolutely no meaning in doing anything at all. I was just like waiting for this to end in some way. I didn't want to exist anymore. But one thing that really could help me go back to that state of mind, which actually started this. What really happens during an awakening is that your filters that you have built up in front of your eyes, what is usually called the ego, the things that we pick up from society and attach it to our eyes, and then we only see through those things, right? All our conditioning, all of, oh, this is good, this is bad, these are good people, bad people, oh, these are the things that we should do, we shouldn't do. And these are the things that kind of shape our reality by what we can see and cannot see and how we relate with everything. This ego came back after that awakening and tried to take back that power. That's what happens when there is light which is brighter. The shadows look sharper, right? And it was just that. Because the shadows were sharper, every little bullshit I had in my mind was shoved in my face. I couldn't not face my own mind anymore. And it was apparent that there was no other way out of it but through it. So this is what I call dark night of the soul. Has anybody heard this term? Yeah. So dark night of the soul is, the term itself comes from a poem by Saint John of the Cross from like 16th century. And this dark night of the soul is a period after some awakening that people go through. Having gone through it myself and having worked through this with many clients, I see that there is this pattern again and again and again, the same pattern. An awakening happens, their life is so beautiful for a little while. Oh my God, life is amazing. There is God in everything, all these miracles. And then, because there is so much brightness, the ego is afraid. That little part of you that is fearful comes back and tries to reconquer. Because it's afraid if the light takes over, the ego does not have any power anymore after that. So it tries everything it can to throw everything at you in a way that you are confused, you are desperate to find some meaning. And it's perfect how it happens. It happens like a test, in a way. A test that actually purifies you. It's a death of the ego that you have to let go of the old so that you can come back into that real awakening that has been gifted to you. Because if you have a part of you that has awakened, and you try to live your life the same way like you did before, based on all your old belief systems, based on all the things that you picked up from society and media, and all the lies that somehow in that moment you believe to be true, now they seem completely false. In that time for me, everything anybody said was like, this is a lie, this is a lie. I was sick of society. And it happens to people, and people think there is something wrong with them. People think they have to take all sorts of weird things and put it into their bodies, take all really bad measures to correct it. There is nothing wrong with them. Some people think they are cursed, but this is the greatest blessing that can be given to you. If you are able to see it in that way, if you're able to get the right guidance to integrate that blessing, it is a blessing. But if you're confused, if the fearful one in you takes over and makes you believe that it's a curse, it appears like a curse. People end up committing suicides sometimes. People end up being stuck in that for decades, and it takes away a huge part of you if you don't find the right guidance. So for me, as I was suffering through the dark night of the soul, when I found these various different helps in my life, I could slowly come to find that inner guidance in my heart that showed me I have to re-examine my life through that light that which is given to me. I have to use that awakening and apply it to all parts of my life. And I started doing this, especially the things that I hated, the things that I judged to be really bad. And one small example was food. One small part of it was a vegetable in India called bitter gourd. Does anybody know that vegetable here? Okay, it's like bitter melon gourd. It's also called, and it looks like an alligator for some reason. It's really dark green, and it's so bitter. Blood cleanser. Yes, blood cleanser. That's what my mom used to tell me and feed it to me when I was young, and I started developing this physical hate for it. Right? I wouldn't eat any of it, but my mom would force me to. And what eventually happened was that the reaction was too strong for me. But through this new perspective that I had gained through my awakening, I wanted to experience that again. And when I made it, I cooked it in the bitterest way possible, without adding any sugar or whatever to reduce that bitterness. And I ate it in the most open way I could. In that moment, what happened, when I tasted it, when I put it in my mouth, I noticed every reaction that was coming from my mind. Every reaction of hate, every reaction, all these memories of not wanting to eat it but being forced to, not liking it, almost throwing up. All these things started coming up. And then I didn't believe any of it. None of that had any power over me. And I was able to let it go. They came and they went. And I started going into a deep meditation. In that moment, everything started turning into light. There was first a very bitter taste in my mouth. And as I went deeper and deeper into it, all these judgments started disappearing. And only this taste existed. It was so strong that there was nothing else but this deep bitterness. And then something happened where it conquered everything that I did not exist anymore. There was only this taste. And this world did not exist anymore. There was only this taste. But it was no longer bitter. There was no name to it. There was no judgment to it. And because of that, even that disappeared. And this is what the Buddhists call shunyata, which is complete emptiness, no self. And this is what took me back into Satori after having suffered through the dark night of the soul. I was able to experience it through something that I hated again. But this time, I enjoyed it so much. This time, it was like a doorway back to heaven for me. And when after this happened, it completely transformed my life, my relationship with food. And I would sit in some restaurant, cafe, I would start eating, and I would go so deep into that taste, I would just be sitting there like this. And I was first, very worried what people would think. Probably they would think I'm on shrooms or some drugs or something. But for me, that experience was so liberating. And somehow people got it. Somehow it's also because I was in a kind of a spiritual place, so it was like kind of, oh, he's probably meditating or whatever. But people started coming to me and asking, why are you eating like this? What's happening? And eventually, it became a teaching. Eventually, I saw that there is such a great gift in what I received through that experience that I could show to others. And I started making it a guided meditation with food, which means that you sit with a plate of food in front of you, and I guide you how you can relate with this food. And as you do this, I help you see your mind. I help you see all your habits related to it, all your conditioning related to it, and help you let it go. And even people who aren't able to sit down and meditate for 10 minutes, people who've had such a hard time doing anything with mindfulness, yoga, and all this, they were able to go into deep meditation because everybody knows how to eat. You've been eating your whole life. And if you just change that approach of how you eat, that changes everything. Food is a microcosm of your life. Whatever you do in life, you do with food too. If you notice your mind when you're eating, it's the same things that come up. When I help people through meditative eating, it's like they can work on all these different areas of their lives. Sometimes it's self-worth, sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's loneliness, sometimes it's some trauma that happened when they were little, which started affecting their life, and the way they eat So it just became a habit, and nobody now knows what is really happening there because they're not examining it. So what I really do is I help you re-examine your relationship with food, and through that, your relationship with life itself, your relationship with your own spirit, because that's exactly what you're doing. And food is just a doorway, and food is such an amazing doorway because unlike other ways, things, you can relate with food in such a deep way. You can use all your five senses. You can look at it, you can touch it, you can taste it, you can smell it, you can even hear it sometimes. But I usually have an Indian thing called papad, which is very crunchy. You can crumple it. So, not just these five senses, but another huge part of food that we completely miss is its energy. How many of you here are able to sense energy? Wow, great audience. And when we are eating, we are blind to its energy mostly, right? When we walk into a room, we're like, oh, this feels good, this feels bad, this feels weird, whatever. But with food, a lot of the times, because we are distracted, we don't connect with the energy of the food. If you are able to connect with that food energetically, before you put it into your body, it's already one with you. Energy or food that is directly showered into your mouth is like an uninvited guest. It's like an intruder for your body energetically because it doesn't know it. But when you become conscious of that food energetically, I teach you how to come to this place in yourself where you can come to that vibration. When you see that food is vibrating with you, and you relate from the heart, a lot of what to eat, what not to eat, how much to eat, what calories, what nutrients. There are so many concepts, so many ideas about food that it gets you so stuck here when you want to change how you eat. It's so mental. Do you agree? Yeah, it's so confusing. All these conflicting views. You don't know what to believe, whom to believe. But if you, from here, come down to here, if you're able to relate to your food from your heart, from that place of energy, you don't need to be stuck here anymore. It's not so much about what to eat, what not to eat in the beginning. You eat whatever you like to eat, but you eat it in this way, and then something wakes up in you. That guidance system in your heart that can tell you what is right for you. Your body starts speaking to you and saying, okay, this energy is good for me to ingest, and this energy, no. And then there is clarity. There is no hundreds of conflicting opinions of what is right and what is wrong. That duality is only in our heads. But in our hearts, there is oneness. And that becomes the doorway for you to open up that guidance in every part of your life. It's not really about food, even though it's called meditative eating. Food is just the beginning. Food is the doorway. You explore it and you find it, and then you bring that awakening into every part of your life. Then you can bring it into your relationships. Then you can bring it into every area where you suffered, every area where you felt held back, every area there is fear, every area there is darkness, you can bring that light and transform it. So, food can really become that stairway to heaven for you, if you choose to use it that way. It's really about how you use it. If you use it as just sustenance for your body, you have some work to do and you eat very fast, and you come home, you're tired and you eat, or you feel lonely and you eat, you feel hungry, you eat. But even when you're feeling hungry and you eat, there is all these filters going on which also bring that loneliness and whatever other things going on in your mind back here, and change that experience with food. They modify that experience to something so little, whereas it can be so vast. It can be your doorway to infinity. So this meditative eating is also a part of the larger program that I do called Integrated Awakening Program. And this is one of the parts of it, a very important part, but there are so many other ways that you can integrate your light into your life. And that's because in everything, in every area you look at, no matter where you look, there is divinity. No matter what you deeply look at, if you look deep enough, there is God. So then we'll go into exploring these other things. So yeah, I've spoken quite a lot about this, and at this point, I'm curious if you have any questions. Yes?
I've heard that in Ayurvedic way, 5 different tastes are used in one meal, that bitter, sweet, sour, salty, and astringent. It helps to balance the receptor nerves that are connected also to the mind and give a sense of well-being and health for balancing these things. But I'm curious if there's maybe an observation about this.
Yeah, so what you said there, the 5 different tastes, right? In a similar way, there is also some philosophy about eating all parts of the rainbow in your food. Right? There is different ways that people say eat all these different things. So what is actually happening there is that you are not limiting your food according to your preferences. So what happens in life is we lead our lives from here. Our opinions, our preferences, our judgments, we let our ego control our whole life. And what happens is that life becomes limited. We only start eating what we like, that taste that we find soothing, maybe something sweet. We eat that, we again and again eat the same thing. And all the rest of the life becomes in the shadow, unexamined. But what if you start opening up your life in this way, your palate, if you start experiencing everything, even the bitter, as you said, even things that normally you wouldn't eat. So when we do meditative eating, what we do is we have a plate with all different colors, all different tastes, all different aromas, all different textures. So to give you a full experience, so that you have so much stimulation, and also to trigger some of your preferences, to to trigger the things that you normally would judge and say, I wouldn't eat this. So we have definitely bitter gourd on the plate. So you get to experience from your heart, not from here, from your heart, these different things. And then it's a different experience. And that makes you think that, oh, maybe I don't inherently not like this. My dislike for this is not inbuilt. So I have a choice. You take your power back. So what we do a lot is we give our power away. We give our power to something in our mind, a concept, some that we picked up from somewhere, some Facebook post, and then we believe it so much. We believe it to be so true. And then it becomes true because you have given it power. Right? But if you take back your power, all the power you've given away all throughout your life, you see how powerful you are. You see how amazing your life can be because you can make the choice for it to be anything. Not if you spend that power into all these different things. So when you open yourself up and eat all these different things, then you're like, maybe I can reset it. But that's a good way. Yes.
I have
Can you pass the mic? 1 second.
Anyway, I really appreciate what you talked about with the ego, because one of the most profound experiences I ever had was listening to a lot of videos and cassettes of Lazarus. He talked about releasing negative ego. He talked about we're given a positive ego and a negative ego. And he talked about, the spirit and the body level self. And you're the first person I've ever found in person who talked about it, so I totally related to what you said. And my question is, now that you've reached some kind of a state, when these things come up, is it more like a little speed bump rather than a big mountain to overcome? In other words, did you notice a difference when something comes up, perhaps a thought, feeling, choice, decision, belief, attitude from maybe past lives or your childhood? Is it just say, oh, I notice you, I can see you. I thank you very much for sharing, and that's not what I wish to hear right now. I mean, how is it different for you now that you've had an awakening? Do you notice a difference when something comes up?
Great question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. What's your name?
Peter.
Peter. Once that awakening happens, it's like you realize you've been sleepwalking your whole life. And there's this little thing in your head which the whole time has been commentating on everything, narrating your life. And then you believed yourself to be that little thing, that commentator. And it seems so true because whatever it said kind of makes sense. Right? Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does, but that's all I have. It's so loud, I can hear it all the time, so it must be me. Right? And then when you realize that you are so much bigger than that, and that is just a tiny part of your experience, it becomes so much easier when there is so much light, so much brightness, that all these little things, little ideas, thoughts, emotions, whatever comes, it's just coming and going. There's no, I have to hold on to it, it's mine. It's not my thought anymore. It's not my opinion anymore. There's no minus to it. That's the charge, right? That's the attachment that keeps us thinking beyond it. Because we have some favoritism towards our own thoughts, right? We try to defend our own thoughts, our own opinions, because our own opinions. But when you see that it's not your own in any way, it's something you picked up through all these things that you're exposed to your whole life, and you thought it was yours for some reason. Now you have the power to let it go. You have the power to not believe it. After an awakening, it becomes easier and easier and easier to see it. So easy that it's like, oh, usually this would take my entire experience and control it. But now, it's just one of the choices that is there. If I want, I can choose to believe that. But if I don't want to, I'm free. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's what you put your attention on grows stronger in your life.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have time for maybe one short question. Yes.
Is there anything that you still won't eat?
After that, my experience with food has expanded so much. I don't really limit myself, but in that moment, I see what is connected to me, what is relevant to my energy. And it's more clear that, okay, oh, this is not for me right now. And maybe the next day I might eat it. In that time, it might help me, but not today. So it's more open, it's more fluid. It's not fixed in a certain way. Okay. So if you'd like to know more about this, I'm very happy to support you on your journey to reset, re-examine, and realign your relationship with food, your relationship with life. I do it through in-person events as well as online events. We also have an online coaching program, so I can really help you make that transformation. Because normally what happens, you try something, oh, this is nice, and something else comes along. There's so much happening in the world right now. It's so distracting, you can't stay focused. But if you want to make that change, I can walk with you on this journey so that we can make sure you get there. It's not left to chance. So if you'd like any help with that, I am very happy, honored to offer my support. So yeah, I'll be here. Come talk to me if you're interested.
It's all in here, right?
Yeah, there's some info in there, but yeah, I can always, if you have any other questions, since our time is almost up, you can just come and talk to me directly. Okay, thank you for being such a great audience. Namaste.